Welcome to Crossroads. In today's episode, we'll be talking about how the woke establishment is attacking present fathers and good families. And they're also trying to frame a two-parent household as now being two-parent privilege related to race politics. Let's talk about it. Look, there's a woke movement that is criticizing the role of parents in the raising of kids. And part of this includes criticism of fathers. I think the most common one we're seeing. Others include claims that two-parent families represent a type of racial inequality, which seems a bit racist to me. And still others claim that the state itself should have more authority over children and that, even over parents in some regards. This all ties into a much deeper argument over the value of families and the many attacks on the traditional family structure. I'll be explaining why they're doing this. We'll go into some history, and I'll show you some pretty shocking stuff. Now look, the issues run pretty deep, but it was recently drawn attention to because of a recent New York Times headline. You might have seen this one. New York Times actually published this. This is New York Times. It says, "The fantasy of the fun TV dad." And they're literally criticizing Bluey and Chip Chilla. And it says, in the children's series Bluey and its conservative knockoff Chip Chilla, boundlessly attentive fathers step in to assuage parental anxieties. This is from the actual article. The writer says, "I don't know how he keeps house, works as an archaeologist, and serves as a full-time prop artist to his daughters, but he does it all while only feigning complaint. He is not only a good father, he is a fantasy, one crafted to appeal to adults as much as to children." Now look, of course, the writer talks about some of the issues and how busy parents are these days, and she raises the question of whether we're staving off guilt by letting our kids watch shows where the parents are more attentive to their kids than a lot of parents allegedly could be. Fine, believe it if you want. But it raised a very different debate online, mainly because of the headline and some of the lines in there. Now look, personally, I was a stay-at-home dad for my daughter for a few years. I worked full-time from home as a journalist still. I think there are plenty of good moms and dads out there who are pretty close, actually, to the depiction of the dad in Bluey. I have a little nephew who's a big fan of Bluey, and so I've gotten to watch plenty of it. What it shows, in my opinion, is a normal household. And it shows, of course, a father who is present and fun and pays attention to his kids. And somehow, for some weird reason, the left is framing that type of, good fatherhood and that attention from a father as being something that's fake, as being something that can't possibly exist, and something that exists, ironically, to shame people. Now, look, I don't know about the nature of the person who wrote this New York Times article. I don't know what their home life is like, but it's interesting to see the debate that this whole article started. Now, there's a very real assault right now on fathers in particular, and on families overall. And one of the new arguments around it is two-parent privilege. Apparently, if you're a child and you live in a home where you have two parents, a mom and a dad, you have racial privilege. I'm not even joking. This is one of the narratives going around right now. Now, before we get into having two parents and becoming part of the race politic class struggle, Epoch TV's newest documentary, The Real Story of January 6th, Part 2, The Long Road Home, is premiering this Saturday, tomorrow. It is a must-watch, so don't miss it. All right, folks, sorry about that. We had some weird technical issue just now. Apologize, but we're back now. Back when I was talking about, the Epoch TV has a new documentary, The Real Story of January 6th, Part 2. A lot of you probably saw the first documentary we did, where, of course, we showed a lot of the unreleased video footage. The new documentary is going to go into the legal side and the weaponization of justice. I think it's a very important documentary that tells stories that maybe a lot of people haven't heard before that are important to know. That's going to be premiering tomorrow, Saturday, only on EpochTV.com, EpochTV.com. And if you have not seen the first documentary, we're making that free also until tomorrow, so be sure to check it out. Now, again, that's premiering. It's the real story of January 6th, Part 2, The Long Road Home. Link in the description and in the live chat, again, only on Epoch TV. And I'll be releasing an exclusive interview with Joe Hanneman, who, of course, led the reporting on this, about the injustices of the prosecutions against the January 6 defendants. That's going to be airing tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Epoch TV as well. So be sure to join me for that. Now, let me show you the trailer for January 6 Part 2.
Calling the January 6th investigation the biggest investigation in FBI history.
There are more than 1,100 arrests, and they show no signs of slowing down.
When you take an oath, you have to abide by it.
They're just going to identify you on video, arrest you, and then figure out what the evidence is after that.
Those involved must be held accountable.
He's an innocent man, and he has been punished for something that he never did. Every day you wake up and you're like, how did I get out of bed today?
You have to stay away from the word patriot now because that's a terrorist organization.
We interviewed 2 whistleblowers from the FBI.
I sacrificed my dream job to share this information with the American people.
That siege was criminal behavior, plain and simple, and it's behavior that we, the FBI, view as domestic terrorism.
We started with death threats, the hate mail.
I don't care what they do to me, but I do care what they do to my family.
Our family struggles every day.
And it's going to change narratives no matter what your political perspective is.
Welcome back. Now, on the argument of this whole narrative on two-parent privilege and how you might be a racist, apparently, if you have 2 parents in your household, look, there's a very real assault right now on fathers, and I said families overall. One of the newest arguments is about 2-parent privilege. Let me show you this, folks.
The decline in marriage, which has happened largely outside the college-educated class, the dramatic rise in the share of kids in the U.S. born outside a marriage or, to single parents, that has contributed to economic insecurity of people without a college degree. And it's really driven class gaps in kids' opportunities, experiences, household resources. This is something, as an economic matter, not as a value-laden or moral proposition, we should all be really concerned about. This is why, from an inequality perspective, this matters so much, because the class and racial gaps in kids' access really to having a stable, highly resourced 2-parent home are driving a lot of these class and racial gaps in society. And so, again, why does this matter? Because it's perpetuating advantage and disadvantage across generations. So if we don't break this, we should not be surprised that we're sort of cementing advantage and disadvantage across race and class groups in America.
Now look, this is raising an important point that there's a real benefit to having a mom and a dad in a household to raise a family. I think there's a reason why you find marriage and mothers and fathers existing in just about every culture on the face of the planet, no matter how isolated that culture has been throughout history. I think people throughout history, our grandfathers and grandmothers and going back many, many generations, understood the value of this. And for some reason, only scientifically, we're starting to realize it again. But I think this argument gets problematic, in my opinion, when they try to turn this whole point into an argument for like race politics and class struggle. I in no way believe that, you should try to make it sound like you're racist if you're, have racial privilege if you have two parents in your household. Look, if we know that normal families are healthy for kids, if we know that it gives you a certain advantage in life, you might be more successful, then why are we not promoting traditional marriage and traditional relationships? Why isn't this being pushed as a solution to the alleged problems of racial inequality when it comes to parents? And if the presence of parents is necessary for the well-being of children, then why are there so many state policies seemingly out to undermine it? One of the ways that this whole equity program works, it does not look to build people up. You don't see the people advocating for, equity and, the benefit of children. You don't see them advocating for, two-parent households. You don't see them advocating for traditional marriage that would hold a family together. You don't see them pushing for policies that would make it more easy for parents to be able to raise a child together. You're not seeing any of that because it does not look to uplift people. It looks to tear down those who are successful. That's the way that socialism has always worked. That's the way that the new socialism under the concept of equity works. It is about tearing down the successful and trying to make us all equally miserable by lowering the bar. They want to tear people down rather than build people up. And they try to make it sound like you have some privilege that should make you punished if you're more successful or, have some kind of status or whatever, like, two parents in your household growing up that might have given you some kind of benefit over other people. Now, look, there's a debate over parental rights and the state assaults on the family that ironically are making this worse. Again, I mentioned, the state solution to this is not to fix the problem. The state solution on this is to criticize and attack people who have the status that they deem to be, an act of privilege. They want to tear down those people. I'll show you this in a minute, but first for that, let's jump over to Epoch TV exclusively because, of course we do the full episodes on YouTube and so on every Tuesday and Thursday, but Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we just do part of it on YouTube. And that lets me talk about the things that YouTube might just ban me for. So come join us on Epoch TV, EpochTV.com, and I will see you there.